A world of mystery, horror, and adventure in a box. Players take on the role of investigators of mysteries, uncovering dark secrets, encountering strange monsters, and thwarting sinister cults. Together, you and your friends create and develop a story in which each of your characters plays a leading role, which could be foiling some dastardly plot or stopping horrors from beyond space and time. Call of Cthulhu is the definitive mystery and horror role-playing game and has won over 40 awards, including being inducted into the Academy of Adventure Gaming Art and Design Hall of Fame. This is a review of Call of Cthulhu, the starter set. Let's dive in. And here we have the Call of Cthulhu starter set. So what exactly is in this box? Well, we have a what's in this box sheet, and on the back we have a ad for Chaosium, I suppose. Yep, that can go. We have a rules book. That's actually book 2. Book 1 is Alone Against the Flames, which is a solo adventure. And then we have book 3, which is Paper Chase and Other Adventures. So these are going to be your starter adventures here. We have some dice, an actual full array of dice, although there is an extra tens die, which is really nice, and it's also in a different color, so it's going to be very useful when you have advantage and disadvantage. We have some pre-generated characters, about 5, and these character sheets are a little bit plain in my opinion. There's just the front and back, and there's really nothing eye-popping about it like we've had in Pendragon or even in the RuneQuest starter set, which we'll see in another video. But we have Jesse Williams, Keiko Kane, Luis Russo, Nevada Jones, what a name, and Wentworth Avebury. Wentworth Avebury, I guess? Okay. We also have 4 blank investigator sheets. So if you really want to make your own, here you go. And these are plain white and not the brown color that came with the pre-generated. So I don't know, I kind of like the white color better. The brown is just a little bit too much, especially with the black ink that they've used. And then we've got handouts, a lot of handouts that you'll be using for book 3. So you'll have handouts and maps and things like that, which you'll give to your players so they can keep track of things or clues and where they are in relation to other creatures in the world. So let's take a look at book 1, Alone Against the Flame. This is your obligatory spoiler warning. If you plan on playing through book 1, Alone Against the Flames, or even book 3 with the adventures, then you might want to skip to the introductory rules, which will actually come right after this section. You have been warned. Alone Against the Flames serves as the introductory adventure for new GMs and players alike. This is a solo adventure, meaning you'll be playing one character. Survive or die, it's really all in the choices you make and the luck of the dice. This is presented in a choose-your-own-adventure format. You're going to read the prompt, make a choice, or go to the next prompt. Unlike Pendragon's solo quest, Alone Against the Flames doesn't have a scoring guide at the very end, so there's less incentive to replay it, which is a shame. You either survive or you die, and that's kind of it. You play as a character who is getting on a motor coach with the hope of making it to the town of Arkham to start a new job. This part of the adventure, the beginning, is actually really intuitive in terms of a solo adventure, in my opinion, because you're making choices, but as you make those choices, you're actually bumping up some values on your character sheet, which I actually really like. I like having that option that what I'm doing or the choices I make actually have a gameplay effect on my character. Unlike Pendragon, you were presented with the character at the very beginning and then you just allocated the points before you even start play. Needless to say, the motor coach breaks down and then you make it to Emberhead. You'll come to realize that you're stuck in Emberhead and things are definitely weird. There's this whole cult that wants to sacrifice you by burning you at a stake with other victims. The adventure is really an escape from this place ordeal, and it's very well done. You either make it or you don't. But also, in a way, that's kinda it. It's just make some choices, the best choices that you can to escape, or you're going to get caught and you're going to the stake. And that's kind of it. It's very simple like that. And that can be very off-putting for some people, but oh well. Call of Cthulhu is a D100 roll-under based game. A regular task requires a roll of equal to or less than your skill value on a D100. That's a regular success. A difficult task requires a roll result equal to or less than half your skill value, which is called a hard success. A task approaching the limits of human capability requires a roll equal to or less than 1/5 of your skill value. That's called an extreme success. There's quite a bit of math involved in this game, but your character sheet actually has room for these half and fifth values, which I'm very thankful for. The only potentially annoying bit is when you level up a skill, and now you have to redo your math a little bit. It is possible to engage in an opposed roll. Basically, you roll as you normally do, but whoever gets the better outcome, that's regular, hard, or extreme, wins. It is also possible to gain a bonus or penalty dice. So for this instance, you're going to roll an additional 10 percentage dice alongside the usual pair of percentage dice when making a skill roll. You're now rolling 3 separate dice, 1 units die and 2 tens. To take the benefit of the bonus, use the 10th die that yields the better, which is the lower, result. Likewise, with a penalty dice or disadvantage, you're going to take the higher result, which is very bad. Investigators have a stat called luck. A keeper can call for a luck roll to determine how likely it is that something happens or object is nearby, etc., etc. If I remember correctly, luck can also be used as a currency to lower a die result on a 1-for-1 basis. For example, if you roll a 55 and you spend 2 luck points, it becomes a 53. It's not directly spelled out in this rule book, but these are introductory rules, so I kind of forgive them if they leave that part out, because that could be a little bit of advanced gameplay there. Whenever an investigator comes across something so horrific, they must make a sanity roll. Roll against your current sanity score. If you roll over, you lose more sanity points. If you roll under, you lose less or none at all. If an investigator loses 5 or more sanity points as a consequence of a single sanity roll, they suffer a major emotional trauma. That player rolls a D100. If the result is equal to or less than their intelligence, the investigator becomes temporarily insane for D10 hours. If they fail this roll, they remain sane. Yep, you heard that right. You're either so smart that you know when shit hits the fan and straight up go insane, or you're too dumb and carry on. Insane investigators also suffer a bout of madness. They're going to roll a D10 and consult the table. So we're going to have things like amnesia or psychosomatic disability, violence, paranoia, significant person. So the investigator mistakes another person as that significant person for a scene. They're going to faint, flee in panic, physical hysterics or emotional outbursts, have some sort of a phobia or mania. If you should be unfortunate to end up in combat, initiative is determined by an investigator's dex score. Very simple. Investigators have access to 3 combat skills: fighting, firearms, and dodge. If you attack an opponent in close combat, they get to react by either dodging or fighting back. Both the attacker and defender roll a percentage die and compare their levels of success. If you are fighting back, you're going to use your fighting skill. You need to achieve a higher level of success than your attacker. If you are dodging, use your dodge skill. Your attacker needs to achieve a higher level of success than you in order to hit. An attack that achieves an extreme level of success delivers increased damage. Blunt weapons deal maximum damage plus maximum damage bonus, if any. Impaling weapons such as blades and bullets deal maximum weapon damage plus damage bonus, if any, plus an additional dice roll for the weapon's damage. A D10 plus 10 points of damage in the case of a handgun, for example. The person firing a gun makes a percentile roll and compares the result with their firearm skill. Rated firearms act as a dex plus 50 for the purpose of determining the dex turn order. If firing 2 or 3 shots from a handgun in one round, apply 1 penalty die for each shot. If at point blank range, that's within 1/5 of dex in feet, the shooter gains 1 bonus die on the skill roll. The target of the shot cannot fight back. You can't dodge a bullet, but you can dive for cover by rolling against their dodge skill. If the dodge roll is successful, the attacker's roll to hit are made with 1 penalty die. And that's kind of it. so always duck for cover. When a character takes damage of greater than or equal to half their full hit points with a single blow, they've received a major wound. They must make a con roll or fall unconscious. If a character with a major wound falls to 0 hit points, they are close to death. That's dying, by the way. They must make a successful con roll at the end of the following round and every round thereafter, or die. Only successful use of the first aid skill can alleviate the dying condition through stabilizing the character. If a character suffers points of damage greater than or equal to their maximum hit points in a single blow, they die instantly. Very interesting in a starter set are the included rules for creating a character. It really is bare bones compared to what I remember reading in the Investigator's Handbook, but you do get an explanation of everything, which is absolutely necessary for playing this game, such as characteristics, attributes, and most importantly, the skills. And oh my gosh, there are a ton of skills. There are some sample investigator occupations, which will have all the skills picked out for you, like antiquarian, author, dilettante, doctor of medicine, journalist, police detective, private investigator, and professor. So if you're overwhelmed with options, then this would definitely be a good place to start. Book 3 contains 3 separate adventures for new GMs and players to go through: Paper Chase, Edge of Darkness, and Dead Man's Stomp. Here is your second obligatory spoiler warning. If you plan on being a player for any of these adventures, turn back now, or Azathoth will devour you. You have been warned. In a very strange twist, Paper Chase, the first adventure in Book 3, is actually designed for just 1 player, although you can accommodate for 2 players if you want. For a GM who has 1 or 2 friends willing to indulge them, this is perfect for learning how to run the game with low stakes. There are 5 pre-made characters who are already part of the Society for the Exploration of the Unexplained, which is very important in this scenario and can help hook the other investigators to their team in future adventures. In this adventure, the investigators are asked to solve a simple burglary and missing persons case. The missing person is Douglas Kimball, who is a solitary middle-aged man and lives only for his books and reading. Not at all a weird hobby, until you learn that he likes to do his reading at a nearby graveyard. There are a variety of ways for the investigators to gather information. They can ask around the neighborhood, they can go looking around the graveyard, they could do some local research at the library, they can talk to the police, they can look at back issues of the local newspaper, the Arnoldsburg Advertiser, or they can go looking around the Kimball house. Eventually, the investigators will want to explore the graveyard that Douglas did his reading in, and they'll soon find a series of underground tunnels. As they continue to explore, they come across Douglas Kimball himself, but something's not quite right. He's a ghoul. Alternatively, the investigators can perform a stakeout in the cemetery or the Douglas house, and he'll come out from his tunnel to secure more books for reading. You see, once upon a time, Douglas met a ghoul in the cemetery while he was reading. They spent years nurturing their friendship, and then one day, Douglas decided to follow his ghoul friend into the tunnels where he became one himself. Fortunately for the investigators, the ghouls are planning to seal the tunnel so they can be left alone. Douglas merely wanted more books before he spent a lifetime in the darkness with his friends. This is a really interesting case because it's supposed to subvert the investigators' expectations. Instead of a horrific tragedy, we see a friendship between human and monster. This could turn the investigators into the monsters depending on how they go about this revelation. Do they just straight up kill Douglas and the ghouls, or do they actually leave them in peace? Edge of Darkness begins with the death of a common friend amongst the investigators, Rupert Merriweather. Just before he passes away on his deathbed, he gives the investigators a mysterious box and a plea to help seal away an evil force from long ago. Inside the box is the deed to a house with a key, a letter from Merriweather to the investigators, a sarcophagus-shaped box, and a slim journal which further tells of a dark brotherhood. Like with the first case, there are several different avenues of investigation. We can go to Miskatonic University's Orrin Library, we can speak with Merriweather's widow or son at the hospital, or we could do an investigation into Merriweather's death. We could also do quite a bit of research, such as finding out about Marion Allen's death, studying the hieroglyphs on the golden box, using the resources available at Miskatonic University's Orrin Library. There's a lot of different approaches for this investigation, which I do appreciate, but Ultimately, it will be up to the players to decide themselves where to go. Although, as a new GM, teaching new players, you could just give them the options and then have them pick from those bullet points. All clues found will point towards an old farmhouse near Ross's Corners, where Merriweather and his associates try to free a djinn from the piece of amber found in the gold box. The investigators can search the farmhouse and the surrounding area and find more clues as to the ritual they will need to perform in order to stop the Lurker, a near-invisible creature from another dimension. The ritual will take some time, and the investigators will need to find some powerful components in order to perform it. And during the ritual, corpses begin to rise in an attempt to stop the investigators. They will also have to deal with the Lurker, who will attempt to trick them in any way it can. Dead Man Stomp is the last case for Book 3, and my personal favorite, but it is the most complicated of the three to pull off. The case follows Leroy Turner, a jazz man with a broken heart and a curse which has taken the form of a trumpet, which he believes was given to him by the great and famous Louis Armstrong. In reality, it was given to him by none other than Nyarlathotep. When played, the trumpet raises the dead and drives them to vengeance. The case begins with the investigators at a local jazz club. Suddenly, Leroy takes to the stage and begins playing his trumpet just as a local gun for hire manages to take out his target in front of the players. The body soon rises and stumbles out of the club, searching for his murderer. But he does not get very far as a car takes him out on the street. It's up to the investigators to take an interest in this case, to want to actually investigate. Things will keep happening regardless, even if they choose to stay away. If the investigators do choose to follow up on Leroy Turner or any of the clues, they will come across a funeral home, where Leroy, once again, will play his trumpet. And as expected, the dead body soon rises from the casket and then goes on a rampage in the middle of a crowd. This is a perfect opportunity for the investigators to talk to Leroy. If they get to know him, they may be shocked when they witness his kidnapping. Hopefully, knowing what Leroy can do with his trumpet will spur the investigators on a rescue mission, and when they arrive, they find Leroy playing his trumpet to bring back one of the recently deceased thugs, who was actually shot by the mob boss, by the way, like then and there to prove a point. Well, that body does go on a rampage, but the mob boss definitely makes quick work of him again. Leroy manages to escape, with or without the help of the players, and, well, he decides to go to Trinity Church Cemetery where his deceased lover is buried. Of course, the investigators have to stop Leroy before he plays in the middle of the cemetery, because, you know, it's full of dead bodies. Or not, failure is quite possible in this scenario, and the raised dead can run a rampage in the streets before being gunned down by the police, or not. I mean, this could be the perfect entry point to a 1920 style rendition of 28 Days Later. Yeah, I'm totally not going to copyright that idea, but you should totally do that if that's more of your thing. Regardless, the PCs can either succeed in this task or not. I feel like Call of Cthulhu often gets this weird reputation that it's just a really crunchy system or an overly complicated system. I think that this starter set definitely does a great job at overcoming that mindset. While not directly involved with teaching players how to play the game, Alone Against the Flames is a really great solo adventure. I really like how you build your character at the very beginning with the first couple of prompts. I don't really see much value in replaying it, but if you want to do it again with maybe different stats or with different options, see what different outcomes you can get, then that might be your thing. But hey, while we're on the subject, Chaosium has actually released these Choose Your Own Adventure books for Call of Cthulhu. And I'm actually running through one of them. I'm actually running Alone Against the Static, which is this 1990s horror adventure that takes place in the woods. It's actually on my podcast, Table for One, so go ahead and check that out. Shameless plug finished, by the way. Each of the cases in book 3 are phenomenal. The only problem I have is with Paper Chase, which is designed for 1 or 2 players. Then again, it could easily be skipped over if you plan on playing the others, because there really isn't anything linking the cases together. But there is something to be said about the adventures themselves, at least from the perspective of a keeper. The first case is very short and designed to help the keepers settle into their role, without truly overloading them with so much bookkeeping or players to keep track of. The second case is a little bit more ambitious and hopefully, a full cast of players and characters to deal with. Then there's also the higher stakes. There's more investigation involved and actual combat. The players are also going to be asked to think outside the box a little bit in order to survive. The third case ups the ante a little bit with even higher stakes and asking the players to investigate a little bit more and keep track of some of the clues that they're getting on their own. Yes, combat can be a thing, but if it ever gets to that point, and I'm speaking specifically for that finale in the cemetery, then it's probably already too late for the investigators. Just saying. Overall, this is a very good starter set with a great set of introductory rules, components, and 3 amazing cases to get the keepers and the players started with the Call of Cthulhu. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support the series, and I will see you guys in the next video.